I'm Sonya Morton Firth and you're watching the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today my guest is Kalpesh Patel. An entrepreneur at 11 years old, he was earning $15,000 a week in his early 20s. He's one of the top 3 leadership trainers in the UK and trained over 500,000 people at live events. Kalpesh is one of the founders of the World Transformation Organization and is campaigning to unite thousands of change makers to inspire and touch 1 million lives in April 2020. Kalpesh, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me over.
So Kalpesh, tell me, at the age 11, that was the start of your entrepreneurial journey, right?
It was.
Tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, 11 years old.
Yeah, it takes me back a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you actually remember it?
I remember, you know what, I'm really lucky. I remember a lot of my childhood, and I often say that's part of the process. You know, the more you can remember, the more you can impact as you go forward. But 11 is when I started, but I'd say my entrepreneurial journey started probably about a decade before that, when I came to this country at the age of one.
Where were you born?
In East Africa, Kenya.
Ah, okay.
So I was born in Kenya, of Indian origin. So great-grandparents from India moved to Africa, looking for opportunity. And I often share this, that there's not many people on the planet you'll find that will move from one country to another and take the risk that they took. So if you imagine, the Brits were running India and offered people from India an opportunity to come and build railways in Africa. The caveat was they had to jump on this boat that took a few months to get across the water, and some of the boats never made it. And there were no telephones back then. So my great-grandparents had to make the decision to leave their wife and children behind, not because they were running from a war or not they were in danger, none of that. They were okay, they were just ticking along, but for a better life. They're like, look, I'm going to leave you here, I'm going to jump on that boat, and hopefully I'll get to the other side, and if I do, we'll have a better life and a better future.
God, doesn't it seem crazy, the world that we live in today?
That's what I'm saying, that when you think what people are so fearful, and I'm like, listen, when you look at what these people did, like if you want to really know what success is, you know, it's really being like stepping into fear and stepping into the unknown and doing the extraordinary.
It's almost like that, no plan B.
No plan B. So they jumped on these boats. Thankfully, they've got their one uncle we did lose, actually. It's a story within the family. A boat never made it. One of my uncles was on at that boat. But my grandparents made it, and the ones that they were in. And so both of my parents were born in Africa. Dad born and raised in Kenya, mum born and raised in Tanzania. They got married, had me, and a year later we came to England. So 3 generations on 3 continents with 3 completely different life experiences. You can imagine that comes with a whole wealth of what I call DNA that's already set up in me. I was one of these rare babies, if you like. I was already walking and speaking, communicating in my local language of Gujarati by the time I was a year old.
So a year old?
A year old. So people talk about, you know, kids that are walking later and talking much later, and I was one of these that I was already like communicating. But again, I often say there were 30 of us living in a 4-bedroom house in East London.
30?
Right. So again, when you look at the circumstances, a baby with 2 parents that are always at work, that they only see in the evenings, is only going to learn at that speed. Whereas a baby that's in a house with 30 people, that's like a train station, in and out, you know.
I guess it's one way to survive,
right?
Yeah.
So you've got to be heard, you've got to be seen, you've got to be noticed. Otherwise, I'm a little dot in this whole organism, right?
30 people.
Yeah. So all of that led to my what I call early awareness of language, of communicating, and then entrepreneurship. Because as I was growing up, all of the people in the house were entrepreneurs. So they came here, no language, no education, academic. Signs on the shop windows that said no blacks, Irish or dogs. That was the level of racism that was accepted back then.
How many years ago?
1971.
1971.
This was the norm. Yeah. Skinheads walking around the streets waiting for the next non-white person to show up so they could just kick the crap out of them for fun. And then when you look at that environment...
Yeah, it can't have been easy. I sort of... Slightly similar situation. I was born in 1971 in Newcastle, and believe it or not, I was as dark as you got in Newcastle in those days. So yes, so I can sort of relate slightly. Yeah. Probably not.
So my parents landed in this what I call a very hostile environment that is not conducive to success in the traditional mindset. But for them, they never complained. There was always smiles. It was never a stressful environment. There was always love, jokes, family, just all getting on with each other and getting the job done. And they worked the jobs that nobody wanted to do, the low-paid, unskilled jobs. But for them, it was a very simple thing of, We got to just do this now so that at some point in the future we can have our own business. That's all it ever was. So it didn't matter. All of the thing that people relate to as pain, for them, was a bridge. It's like, no, we just do this for however long, doesn't matter. And it took my parents 10 years to get out of the game, if you like. So when I was 10 years old, they bought a business.
So they didn't let the stress, they didn't let the
they knew where they were
aggression,
going.
they didn't let anything affect them.
No.
Amazing.
Yeah, so for four years we all lived under that one house, and then the next 6 years my dad bought the house across the road, and so we were split between two houses, but we were all one family living together for the first 10 years of my life. So really the values that brings as well, the power of unity, working together, having each other's backs. You know, they all put their wages into one pot. I often say to people, would you do that? Would you live in a house with all of your siblings and uncles and aunts, go and work a full week and put your wages in the pot along with everyone else's?
I wouldn't do that with a boyfriend, never mind.
Do you see what I'm saying? So when you witness all of that, of what it takes to make things work, and today, you know, they all had their own businesses, they all went on to buy their own homes, and you know, their children have done tremendously well. Some got educated or got into the career ladder, others just went straight into entrepreneurship, people like myself that followed those footsteps. But you know, there's a level of success that's been achieved within a generation that's not, it wasn't just my parents, it was everybody. So that's not now accidental or by luck, that's by design.
In your DNA.
Do you know what I mean? That's by design.
So do you believe that it's genetic?
Absolutely.
So
I believe there's a huge part of that. And when I don't mean scientifically genetic, I don't mean in my physical DNA, I mean in my mental DNA. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's in the DNA, the blueprint of the way that I think, the way that I approach life. I had a huge advantage. And so when people talk about wanting to be an entrepreneur, I often say that, you know, you've got to go through that process first. You know, you can read all the business books in the world, but the reality is I often say...
It's not academic.
Yeah, you know, I say that show me any MBA student and they're always working for somebody that didn't go to university, 9 out of 10 times. It tells you something, right?
Yeah,
so, yes, read the books to give you some idea of how it all works, but your mindset, your attitude, your approach is going to determine most of whether you're going to survive the journey of an entrepreneur or not.
Wow. So 11, what were you doing?
I was buying stuff. So I went to school, went to secondary school at 11 and saw the canteen, and they had all the same stuff my dad was selling in his shop. And I knew the margins because I was very involved in my dad's business from early on. And I was like, oh, there's an opportunity here. So one day I came home and I went, Dad, if I took stock from here and wrote it all down and went and sold it at lunchtime, whatever I sell, I keep the profit and I give you the cost of the goods. Is that okay? Supportive dad that he was, yeah, do your thing. And that's how it started. I filled my bag every day with goodies.
So it was like a little tuck shop.
Yeah, well, a mini tuck shop.
Tuck shop.
And it doesn't take much, and that's what I mean by psychology. Within no time, I was making 50p, a pound, £2, £3 a day, just building it up. When you're 11 years old and you're the only one that has an income, you're already the richest kid in school.
Wow.
It doesn't take much, right?
And I guess that success breeded further success,
right?
You
stand taller,
yeah.
You think even more differently, creatively, entrepreneurially, you spot opportunities. Everything changes. When you overcome the barriers that most people have of what they can and can't do and just take a risk, take a chance, play. You just play with it. For me, it was just like, oh, let's have a go, let's see.
Did you feel it affected your childhood at all?
In what way?
I guess the normal things that kids would do, play in the schoolyard.
I wasn't interested. Yeah.
So you had that.
While everyone was playing football or getting into gangs and bullying each other, I had somehow enrolled my teacher to leave that classroom open because they'd lock all the classrooms at lunchtime. My teacher saw this as almost like maybe a do-good situation, because what I did, as the business matured, when I was 13, 14, I let my teacher open the classroom. I put some tables together with some chairs in the middle. I bought some table tennis bats and balls from Argos, and I'd sell 20p a game to play table tennis at lunchtime. So I kind of kept kids out of trouble. I bought those handheld games, Donkey Kong and Snoopy and those ones. I used to buy those, put them on the tables around the edge of the room, and rent those out at 20p a game.
Oh my God.
So I had this, what turned out to be a couple of quid a day, ended up, by the time I was 15, 16, I was making like £800, £1,000 a month in my lunch hour, which back then, people would work full time for.
Of course, of course.
So in the mornings, I was the only 10-year-old I knew that would wake up at 5:30 in the morning to be in the shop with my dad, because I just loved being with my dad, right? So I'd wake up at 5:30 in the morning off my own back, be in the shop and hustling with my dad, serving customers, doing the deliveries, doing all of that. As soon as I got back from school, I'd do my homework at the back of the shop. And then every in-between, when I was like having a brain freeze, I'd jump behind the counter and serve customers. But I remember even now thinking, some of these customers, beautifully dressed, briefcases, umbrellas, all of that, you know, we're in the Barbican, right in the heart of the city.
Yeah.
And they looked amazing, but in my mind I'd be thinking, I make almost as much money as you in my lunch hour, and you've got, I see you come in the morning and buy a newspaper and some cigarettes, and I see you on your way home picking up, a packet of crisps and a bar of chocolate or whatever. You've been out all day to make the same money I do in an hour. Like,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Completely.
So in the back of my mind, I'm like, why would people want to do that? I couldn't understand it.
So what did you do after? I mean, obviously you went to school, did that, and then how does that translate a little bit later on?
So super blessed. I went on from sweets to then tracksuits and trainers, and eventually I did cross some grey lines. It was like car stereos. I never asked where they came from.
Oh God.
Yeah, all of that. It was whatever the people wanted, right? So I was servicing the demand of the age group I was in, and never got into drugs, thankfully. I had some moral values, but I just started servicing people, and eventually at uni I was buying and selling cars. So the toys just got bigger. What I was transacting just became bigger, but the concept was the same. Buy something, add a margin, sell it on, find the customers that create the bridge between. And then eventually when I came out of that, I bought and sold shops in my early 20s.
Wow.
So the toys just got bigger, if you like.
Got bigger.
The transactions got bigger.
And what happened? What was the biggest challenge? Did you face challenges? Presumably you faced challenges as an entrepreneur in
for sure.
those days.
The challenges would have been, one, as you mentioned, when other kids were having fun playing, although I didn't want to do that at the time, I often wonder now, maybe I could have done a bit more of that. But I don't know, because it would have taken away from my real passion. I'm an entrepreneur. I wanted to hustle, right? Yeah, that's what I mean. I was so zoned. But some of the challenges, I can tell you the challenges I avoided at school. Because I had money, I bought the bullies, literally. So I never got harassed and bullied. In the beginning I did, in the first couple of months. And as soon as I started making money, the bullies, I just paid them, so they became my bodyguards.
Oh my gosh, it's like the mafia.
It was like that. So all of the kids...
look after my shop,
yeah,
here's
so
some money.
Yeah, the people that were feared were my friends. It was really weird, but I wasn't like that. I wasn't like them in terms of I wasn't interested in bullying people and doing all of that. But because I bought my protection, if you like, I didn't have to fear them. I had pockets full of money and they wouldn't even touch me.
So tell me this, entrepreneur, you're making lots of money. How did you get then into personal growth? Because to me, they're miles apart, right?
They are in their own way and they're not. And so I kind of bring it all back together, and that's my passion now. How do we bring entrepreneurs to a level of consciousness where the business they do is
something was to trigger
ethical and valuable?
Did something trigger
Yeah, so I had the biggest tragedy to date, I say, in my life was losing my dad at 23. He was my superhero. I grew up absolutely in awe of this incredible human being that just was so giving and selfless and dreamt, like just the ability to carry vision and always have a smile on his face. However tough his life was, he always talked about one day, that was always his thing, one day you guys are going to be living in nice houses, driving nice cars, you'll have made it. This is just temporary. So all of those years of struggle and hardship.
Did he ever let you know, or did he ever make you feel like you couldn't do it?
Never,
there
never.
Was always
even when we couldn't have toys, like I want that bike or I want that toy, if they weren't in a position to give it to us, they would never say no. They'd say, look, maybe next year, or maybe on your birthday. They'd delay it. So it was always like available. It was never, oh, that's not for me. Yeah. So anything's for me, we don't know, but we'll work towards it. So again, that kind of mindset of always being forward thinking. So when I lost my dad at 23, I lost everything. I lost interest in life. I couldn't find any answers. I was like, what's the point of all of this? All of the success is worthless without him. And I reflected that into my life very quickly. I manifested that exact mind thinking into my life in no time. Within 6 months of losing my dad, my girlfriend of 6 years left because I was just that hard to be around. Yeah. Within a year and a half, I went bankrupt.
Oh, gosh.
And I spent the next 3 years after he died in what I call the darkest years of my life, feeling sorry for myself, crying oftentimes when I'd look at the person in the mirror and feel like, wow, what happened to the guy I used to be? Like thinking I'd lost that person forever. I'd never ever be able to find that old Kalpesh again. That used to cause me so much pain because I loved the person I was. And now it's this horrible mess.
Were you able to talk to your family?
No,
or?
I cut off from all of that. We all deal with things differently, right? I dealt with it so badly. I was rude to my mum, rude to my brother. We all lived together in an extended family home, but I was just rude. My brother just recently got married. I was rude to her. I cut off all of my social circles. So I was from life of the party to not wanting to go out or do anything. I just disengaged from all of it and became this kind of just lonely, internal
Was there any
mess.
a point that you ever thought of ending it or anything?
Luckily not. Not that I can remember. It was a very dark space. I can't remember thinking about taking my life. And I put that down to the upbringing that I had. Life was too valuable. But I destroyed everything else around it. So that the life I was living, I might as well have not been living. Like I had nothing going on. It was a very dark life that I created. But no, touch wood, I never thought of ending it. But I would destroy any opportunity, any conversation. If somebody was smiling, I'd find a way to put a frown on their face, put a dampener on it. I was that guy. I was the guy that would find a way to turn any positive thing into a negative thing. The opposite of my parents became this horrible opposite of everything that I'd known, right? That was how I reacted to it. And then, luckily, and I often say this to people, you never know. If you're aware, you never know the impact you can have on somebody. I had a friend who just demanded we go to this seminar. And she showed up at my house on I think it was like a Saturday or a Sunday morning, it was a weekend, and said, look, we're going to Milton Keynes, long old drive all the way to the middle of the country, and you're going to come to this seminar with me. And I was like, no, you go, have fun, you can tell me about it later. And she was like, no, go get dressed, we're going. I'm not leaving without you, and the longer you take, I'm going to be late. Anyway, got dressed, with her, and I walked into this room of a seminar with about, I don't know, would have been 800 to 1,000 people in the room.
Oh, wow, okay.
It was insane.
Okay, yes.
And you know the energy of these rooms.
Yeah, so it was like a Tony Robbins thing or...
I was like, oh my gosh, who are these people? It was like nostalgia. So I was torn. A part of me was like, that used to be me. There's a room full of entrepreneurs that are excited, they're happy, they're hugging and high-fiving, and everyone had mobile phones. It was happening.
Yeah.
And then there was me, the current me, which was the complete opposite of that. And I was really torn, like, I don't belong here, but I do belong here. A really weird feeling. I came up to Milton Keynes with her, so there's no going home on my own. I was kind of stuck, so okay, I'm here now. And I sat in the seminar, and I remember in the first half of the seminar, I was very judgmental, very opinionated about, like, I've been there and done it. So from that selfish perspective, I went to him at the end of the seminar and said, listen, I had a light bulb moment in all of that, and it was the bit where you turned your life around. I need to turn my life around. Yeah. What am I supposed to do? And so I've got no idea, only you can answer that. Best thing he could have said to me. He said, only you can answer that. And I'm like, that doesn't help. He said, but I can tell you how to start, and how I started is start reading. And I'm like, reading? I hated reading throughout my whole life. It was boring, right? I was like, oh no, not reading, please. And I'm dyslexic, so it's like really like, it's only if I have to, right?
I guess it was the days before Audible books were around as much as they are today.
But he pointed me to a couple of books, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. I read these books and I devoured them.
So what was the biggest thing that you think you took to help, you just said the word recalibrate your mind, going from this point of despair and darkness to where you've turned
personal responsibility. Just owning it. Owning that I did that the last 3 years. It wasn't something happened to me. Like how I had it for the 3 years, that happened to me. My dad died. He was taken away from me way too young. He shouldn't have gone. There's a load of people out there that deserve to go way before him.
Yeah, but you can't do anything about it.
Right. So I'm sitting there blaming the world and blaming God. I was disconnected to my relationship with God. Everything. I was just like not interested in friendships, family, nothing. So it was identifying that I did that. Nothing happened to me. Something happened.
So you took
and then everything happened to me. Yeah, I did.
You took the victim
I took that out of it and said, right, I own it. Yeah. Everything that I did from the moment my dad died was self-created. Okay, let's undo that. Tell myself a new story. Let's get all the languaging right, the thinking right, the foundation right, and let's get on with this thing called life.
Great.
Yeah.
and then what happened? Well, I guess
look back since I've been traveling the world. I committed to myself to making a difference. Network marketing was a great vehicle because it put hungry audiences in front of me, people that were willing to learn and they were willing to change and do what they had to do to be a better version of themselves. So it turned me into a speaker. I didn't even know what a speaker was, but I was a natural. The first time I got up on stage,
I can see it. I can tell you would be very natural at it.
People talk about nerves and shakiness and all of that. I never had any of that. I remember the first time I got up in front of an audience, I actually loved it. I was like, wow, that was awesome. I want to do more of this, right? So often I was born to do that. And so I kind of found my new passion, which was to inspire people through language, through storytelling, and just sharing. And I've been doing that for 23 years and been blessed to have travelled literally the entire globe and spoken in front of hundreds of thousands of people and just enjoy doing what I love doing now, which is the commitment I made back then, which is, why wasn't this information taught to me at school, college, or university? It would have been really useful if I knew this before my dad died. I'd still have gone through the pain, but differently. I wouldn't have destroyed everything with awareness. Without awareness, I destroyed everything. With awareness, I would have just gone through the pain, but not destroyed it all the way that I did. So I'm like, right, this needs to get out there. And I said, right, I'm going to make sure this gets out to every person I meet.
And how do you think it's changed? Because obviously personal development has come a long way. As you say, back 23 years ago, there was a tiny little section of the bookshop. And now it's huge, you know, it's everywhere. And you know, there are critics out there that go, oh, God, yeah, personal development, yeah. People talk the talk.
Yeah. Do you know what?
And I've seen it as well, you know, and obviously I am in the personal development world, big in the personal development world, but I have seen people talk the talk and not walk the talk.
Yeah.
And it's how do you find that?
Yeah.
Or how do you find that person?
I've struggled, not now, recently I've come to my own conclusion with that, but I struggled initially when I saw this beautiful sacred space, I called it, that few knew about, and I could go and offer it as a gift to people, like, look, it's possible. To suddenly there was a moment, and I'd say that moment happened probably about somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago, where what I call some charlatans, like in everything that's trending,
of course,
you'll get people that want to take advantage of the trend rather than what was actually going on. And so people step into the space and abuse it. You know, like I say, anytime there's a trend, there's going to be people that are committed to the actual cause, and there'll be people that are taking advantage of it. And I saw that happen. I saw people getting on stage and saying stuff that they weren't living, misrepresenting, doing all sorts of stuff just to empty people's pockets and bank accounts from the audience into theirs, using fear and scarcity and all the stuff that I'm like, you're actually using stuff that we're supposed to help them resolve. You're using that stuff against them to get them to part. It's horrible, made me cringe.
Of course.
And
people are actually quite vulnerable in that space. If they're coming, especially at the early stages of personal development, usually you're coming because of adversity or something's happened to you.
They're already in trouble.
And they're in trouble. They're at a vulnerable stage.
Yeah, they're open to that level of abuse. And so it's a shame that people would abuse people like that. But then from a spiritual perspective, I say, you know what? Everything balances itself out. Yeah. So that person perhaps needed to go through that to find
need to toughen up
a better
as well.
path, right? Yeah. So I'm like, look, what's important, not so much what others are doing, what am I doing? And so as much as they're doing that, rather than me stepping back, which is what I did for a while, I need to lean into that more and make more of a noise and a presence. But hey, listen, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be like this too.
Talking about more of a noise, more of a presence, I'm really interested in what you're doing at the moment, World Transformation Day. Talk to me a little bit about that. What's all that about, the foundation that you set up?
It's part of this conversation, funnily enough, of this whole, like, okay, what are we going to do about it? Rather than complaining about what's not working and not happening, what can we do about what is? And that's where we said, okay, so myself and a couple of friends have got together. We just created, I say it's a shared dream of, I'd say anyone in personal development shares this dream. And it's to make a world a better place.
Of course. Change the world, right?
Raise
vibration levels, whatever you want to call it.
Raise the consciousness, raise the vibration. And so we said, right, how's that going to look? So we said, right, let's create an umbrella company called World Transformation Organization. And it celebrates everyone that makes a difference. So there are millions of us making a difference in the world, the way that we do it. But we're doing it individually, so it's scattered everywhere.
Yes.
And we're all impacting our own little audiences and our own friends and our environments. Now we give it a backdrop, World Transformation Organization. We'll say, okay, how do now people get connected to this backdrop? We'll have a day. We'll call it World Transformation Day. Just like Valentine's Day. Nobody needs to think what happens on Valentine's Day, when is it? It's already there. Yeah. It's programmed. Mother's Day, Father's Day. It's like, we know what to do. What are people going to do on World Transformation Day? So first of all, it's the date. When is it? It's the first Sunday of every April.
First Sunday, so okay.
First Sunday of every April, and all we ask the world, so 364 days a year, you're surviving, you're doing what you have to do to put food on the table, roof over it, all of that stuff, great. But this one day a year, drop all of that and see what can you do for someone else.
And what sort of things are you asking people to do?
So we don't want to control it in terms of, we're not telling people what to do, but we've got kind of guidelines, if you like. It's all about inspirational work. So we've got 5 things that people get involved in. One is a personal transformation project. So take on a fear, take on a limiting belief, take on your comfort zone and do something that you've been meaning to do for a long time but haven't. Or get over something that you've been meaning to get over, get some help, get some support around it and do that on that day. Okay. Capture it on a photograph or video or whatever and share it on social media with the hashtag World Transformation Organization, and next will be WTD 2020. So they're the hashtags. Okay. So share your personal transformation.
And we'll put those in the notes as well.
Brilliant, thank you. The second thing you can do is transform your family and friends. So, and that could look like anything. Maybe we had people inviting friends round to their house and meditating with them, which is not what they would normally do. And so we had people inviting friends over for meditation or yoga sessions in the living room, or conversations about transformation, which were not the norm. So it's about doing something outside the comfort zone, but including them and letting them know that, hey, listen, you know what? That stuff I do, this is why. Let them know who you are. So it's about transforming your community, your social circle. Then the third one's your community. So we said, take on a community project. If you're that kind of person, everyone's at different levels of leadership, right?
Yeah, of course.
If you're the kind of person that can get people together and organise stuff, do something for your community. So, for example, myself and some friends went to a shelter and we gave personal development talks and fed the homeless people at that shelter on that day.
That's great. I mean,
yeah,
that's
we had other friends that went to old people's homes and took their children along.
Yeah,
so they organised like all the mums to bring their children to an old people's home. So you had this dynamic of young kids playing and old people that, you know, the two ends of the spectrum, just enjoying that vibe. So it's anything that transforms a community. We had people on the streets giving clothes to homeless people and feeding homeless people on the streets. And it's really whatever your calling is on that day, but capture it on video or camera and share it on social media with the hashtags.
And how are you promoting this? Obviously, we'll help promote this, but is there any other way where people can,
We've got a Facebook community, World Transformation Day community. We're just come join that. We're looking to get at least 1,000 people by the end of the year is the goal.
1,000 people to spread the word?
Right.
Okay.
So we're up to about close to 500 now.
Okay.
The goal is 1,000 by the end of the year. And then the 1,000 will now cause 1 million lives touched.
1 million lives.
April.
Is that your goal? Yeah. 1 million lives.
So we touched 12,000 lives in 2018 when we launched.
That's amazing.
That grew organically to 44,000 lives this year by itself. And that's what inspired us. We're like, hold on, if that went from 12 to 44,000 in a year by itself.
And how do you know this? How will you capture it?
Oh, just by the hashtags.
Okay.
So we're just tracking hashtags. So it's a lot more than that. These are just the people that consciously put the hashtag on whatever they were doing. That's the measure that we're using.
Day.
The actual impact is much more than that, of course.
So if anyone's listening on that day, they should be doing something along those lines.
The first Sunday of April.
First Sunday and hashtag.
Selfless activity.
And we'll put the hashtag in the notes as well.
Add the hashtag and share it with the world. Be part of the cause.
So what's the big vision? Well, I mean, it sounds like this is...
Can you imagine 3, 4, 5 years from now when there are tens of millions of people or potentially hundreds of millions of people on the planet that drop everything and come together in raising the vibration of the planet?
Have you got any governments involved?
Not yet. We're so new. We will have all of that. So if
anyone's watching out there that's got a link into the government or some really big organisations, some big influencers.
Influencers, famous people, governments, organisations, we need reach, right? It's just awareness. Yeah. We want World Transformation Day to be like Valentine's Day. It's just there. People are waiting for it like, yeah, I can't wait. That's how we want to see it. And part of it, you mentioned governments. We've actually got in our future plans, we're going to launch something called World Transformation Conference, which is going to be like our United Nations, the People's United Nations, where it's independent of politics and bureaucracy and limitations, economy. It's independent of all of that. We're just going to get all of the World Transformation leaders and influencers into a room, whether it's online, like an online conference. We'll probably evolve into real events eventually. And we'll invite business leaders that have funding to contribute to real world issues, food, water, shelter, and solve stuff without the bureaucracy and politics that gets in the way of that stuff.
Sounds great. Keep me posted. I'd like to be involved. Definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
Kalpesh, we've actually come towards the end of the interview. I can't believe. But I have got a final question for you. If you were to write a message in a bottle that was going to be found for future generations, what would that message be?
I would love to see personal development as the default. So the message would be, for me, tap into your higher self earlier and be true to that rather than the noise around it.
I love it. Kalpesh, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like and you'll get it straight into your inbox.